And that could after the crawl and the pan, we could have started on Jakku, but right after at the Battle of Jakku, which was established in the video games. I never played it, but I know enough that that's where that came from.
Huh.
Why are we starting well after all of that?
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest criticisms of the sequel trilogy is that all of the truly interesting stuff is in the flashbacks. Why it wasn't that the story?
Yeah, which really in and of itself is not what
Jedi.
Story.
Why wasn't that the story? We start with the Battle of Jakku. We can even see like we saw in Rise of Skywalker with Luke trying to train Leia to get her. Yeah, very briefly. Very briefly.
Did they? Was that footage that was not used in the first film, or how did they pull that off?
I think it was just faked. I'm not sure how.
CGI or?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Or repurposed elements. But that would have been a really interesting way to kick off the new trilogy. Then you can jump forward to when Luke is training a new group of Jedi and struggling with, Ben and all that across the course of all three movies.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But of course, that, requires an iota of thought.
I just made that up.
Yeah.
In a few minutes, and it's like, I would have much preferred to see that.
Yeah, as you said earlier, I would have paid to watch that.
Where is the struggle? Where is Ben's struggle with the light and the dark and his fanboying over his grandfather? Instead, we jump right to the end result of that, and that's not interesting at all.
Right. There's no development. There's no conflict and resolution.
Right. He's just a Darth Vader wannabe.
Yeah.
Show that conflict. Show us what happened and how he slowly went down that path, and what Luke was trying to do to keep him from that path that leads him to leave violently, obviously, leave the training academy and seek out relics of the Sith, and in particular his grandfather's legacy. And that's, maybe at the end of the first movie is when he finds the melted helmet and stuff like that, because he goes back to Endor. Mm-hmm. Something like that. Show us an actual journey. Not
it sounds to me like
we're here.
I need to see the third movie, because it sounds like there are some story concepts in there that, even though they may have been super fast, cut, that there was enough in there that I may be missing something. I was just so disenchanted with The Last Jedi that, especially on hearing reviews from, my friends on YouTube, it didn't seem to be anything I would want to see.
Yeah. Well, again, it's so disrespectful of characters that were established but never fleshed out, because they thought they had 3 movies to do it, and then they didn't. Characters like Phasma and Snoke and Maz Kanata, and really all of them. Even Finn was kind of sidelined, and then even more so in the
story arc. His character arc could have been brilliant. A rogue stormtrooper,
disillusioned stormtrooper,
becoming a heroic figure, and like you said, they just sidelined him,
and completely by the third movie.
And I think, God, now I'm spacing on the actor's name.
For which one?
For Finn.
John Boyega?
Yes, and I've heard that John Boyega has had a lot to say about his character being sidelined, and that his arc could have been a lot better than what they did with him.
I mean, everyone kind of equates Poe to Han Solo, but I think that really could have been Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when we first meet Han Solo, he's a scoundrel. He's not a good guy. He's not a
Right.
hero. He's in
Yeah.
it for himself.
That's right.
And he has that arc over the 2 movies, because then he becomes a parody of himself in Return of the Jedi. But over Star Wars and Empire, he has that arc from being completely in it for himself and associating with, the scum and villainy to being a hero.
Yep.
And becoming a general.
But there is a hero within him, and I think that's the opportunity that they lost with Finn.
Exactly. And that's why that's one of the things I don't like about the special editions, is because George kind of undermined that arc by trying to make him a good guy from the beginning. It's like, no, remember how to tell a good story.
Yeah. It's in the first movie, he had his wife and some other people to tell him no. And in the prequels, especially, it was just him. And so he got to sort of, do whatever he wanted. And
Rick McCallum may be the worst producer in the history of Hollywood, because he let George do what he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's not even get into Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, she's a great producer, but she doesn't know enough about the actual creative process, I think, to really pick the right people, especially for Star Wars. And I think she just picked the wrong people and didn't know enough about the franchise to oversee them. So
I think you're being extremely gracious to her by saying it that way. And I think that there is an element of it to it that's certainly true.
You have to look at her track record also.
Sure.
She's maybe the most successful producer in Hollywood history.
But not a creative.
Not a creative. Being in charge of Lucasfilm was one thing, but she needed to hire somebody like a Kevin Feige for Star Wars, and possibly any other franchise like Indiana Jones they wanted to revive. Not just the actual filmmakers. She needed that in between that understood the business side and the creative side, the way Kevin Feige does with Marvel.
Yep.
He is a brilliant producer, but he's also a massive fan and understands the material like few do. And that's why the MCU is so successful.
Choice if Jon Favreau would have been involved from the get-go.
Or Filoni or somebody, or it doesn't have to be an individual. They have a team of people there.
I think it should be, because one person's vision needs to oversee that entire arc, that trilogy, instead of putting in, do this for me, person number 1, do this for me, person number 2, do this for me, person number 3, which was person number 1. But yeah, it's
I agree. The ideal situation would be a Kevin Feige for Star Wars. But if they couldn't find that one person that could do all of that, I think the pair is doing a really good job, as we've seen. With Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because few people really understand or love Star Wars the way Filoni does. I mean, he worked directly with George. He absorbed George's passion for that. And he really even understood it better than George did at that point, which is why the Clone Wars does such a good job of filling in all those blanks and inconsistencies of character and story between the movies.
Interesting.
So when you watch the Clone Wars and then you watch Revenge of the Sith, it's a completely different movie.
I bet.
because
Those are
of
parts of my
Filoni and
fan
his team.
have to fill in.
Yeah, and that's why I think the Mandalorian is so good, because those guys, they love the material, but more importantly, they respect it.
Yeah, they're
And
fans
that is,
first.
you can't just be a fan, because a lot of these people that are ruining the franchises are fans, but they don't understand how to make the thing that they love.
Yeah,
You know, if you love, you know, cheesecake, that doesn't mean you automatically know how to make a cheesecake.
exactly right. Yeah, and of course, you know, science fiction and screenwriting and character development, conflict resolution, blah 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 blah. Certainly much harder than making a cheesecake.
They're
In
tricky though.
any case, I can hear Edgar is getting hungry, and I think that
It's not his dinner time though.
oh, okay. Well, I
She's
think
just
we have
hungry.
hit our point here. So I do want to again thank you for coming on. I do want to encourage our audience to go to Amazon and look at B.L. Alley's books and take advantage of this great opportunity to load up on some really good science fiction at a great
I
price.
appreciate that. Yeah.
And we will definitely look forward to seeing you on in the future and in the chat where we do see each other on YouTube.
Yes, we do. Thanks for
So,
having me on.
yeah, thanks for coming on. It
This
was
was a lot of fun.
I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, we still have a lot of stuff to cover.
I agree.